I have been silent for too long. Silence is a heavy burden, heavier than any chain, because it does not only bind the voice, it shackles the soul. Tonight, that silence ends. Injustice has a way of creeping into every corner of our lives. It is not always loud. Sometimes it hides in shadows, thrives in indifference, and feeds on fear. But make no mistake, when injustice is allowed to grow, it poisons us all. It is not the wound of one person or one people, but a scar that marks the whole of humanity. Too often we turn away. We tell ourselves it is not our fight. We wait for someone else to stand, to speak, to act. But every moment we stay silent, injustice gathers strength. Every time we look the other way, the oppressor grows bolder, and in that silence, the truth suffers. But truth cannot be buried forever. It claws its way out, unrelenting, demanding air, demanding light, and when it comes, it will not whisper. It will roar. It will tear through the lies that try to suffocate it, and it will remind us that justice is not a gift from the powerful. It is a right born in every human being. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act in spite of it. Each of us carries a responsibility, whether we want it or not. We cannot pretend it belongs only to leaders or governments or courts. It belongs to every hand that can rise, every voice that can speak, every heart that can beat with the fire of what is right. So hear me now. Injustice must not only be named, it must be confronted with unity, with resilience, with the relentless will to see it fall. Because when good people rise, when they refuse to be broken or silenced, injustice has nowhere left to hide. The time for silence is over. The time for justice is now. Silence is not simply the absence of words. It is a presence in itself. It lingers in the air like a weight, pressing down on the chest until it becomes almost unbearable. For too long I carried that weight, convincing myself that silence was a shield, that by keeping still I was sparing myself, sparing others, perhaps even keeping the peace. But silence does not protect. It corrodes. It eats away at the conscience until the nights grow long and restless, and the heart is no longer able to escape the truth it has refused to speak. There is a kind of quiet that is peaceful, born of reflection and wisdom. But the silence I speak of is not that. It is the silence of fear, of hesitation, of waiting for the right moment that never comes. It is the silence that allows injustice to walk freely, to grow stronger, to root itself deeper in the soil of human life. And I must admit this, my silence was not harmless. It was complicity. By withholding words, I withheld resistance. By restraining my voice, I surrendered space to voices that corrupted truth. And there comes a point when a person can no longer ignore the sound of their own silence. It becomes deafening. You hear it in every story left untold, in every cry that goes unanswered, in every act of cruelty met with nothing but stillness. And in that silence, you realize that what you thought was safety was actually surrender. What you thought was patience was actually permission. I have been silent, and for that I feel the weight of responsibility. Because silence is not neutral. It tilts toward the oppressor. It gives comfort to the one who inflicts harm, and it betrays the one who suffers it. To remain silent in the face of injustice is to stand in the shadows while others are left in the fire. That realization is heavy, but it is necessary. And so I stand here, not as someone proud of restraint, but as someone who knows that silence has lived too long in my mouth. It has done its damage, and now it must end. Words alone cannot erase what silence has allowed, but they can begin to tear down the walls it built. They can begin to restore the voice that was missing. They can be the first strike against the weight that once held me down. Justice is not bound by borders, nor is it limited to a single people, place, or time. It is a sickness that seeps into every society, no matter how advanced, no matter how proud, no matter how powerful. When it strikes, it does not simply wound the direct victim. It casts a shadow that stretches across communities, across nations, across generations. What is done to one human being echoes through the lives of all. To believe otherwise is to pretend that we are not bound together by the simple truth of our shared humanity. Injustice wears many masks. It may appear as cruelty in the streets, as corruption in the halls of power, as silence in the face of suffering. Sometimes it is bald and violent, leaving scars that cannot be hidden. Other times it is subtle, weaving itself into laws, traditions, and systems, disguising itself as normality. But whether loud or quiet, visible or hidden, it always carries the same poison. It diminishes dignity, erodes trust, and undermines the fragile foundation of justice upon which every society is built. It is a mistake to think injustice happens to others. There is no other. When one person is denied their voice, all voices lose strength. When one community is stripped of its dignity, the moral fabric of every community begins to fray. The suffering of a stranger across the ocean or across the street is not disconnected from our own lives. Their pain is a reflection of what could just as easily fall upon us if left unchecked. We may not feel it immediately, but the damage is always spreading like cracks in the foundation of a house that will one day collapse. History has shown us that injustice ignored in one corner of the world has a way of growing until it engulfs many. To dismiss it as not my concern is to forget how deeply connected we truly are. Empires have fallen, wars have erupted, and countless lives have been shattered because people believed injustice was a distant problem until it arrived at their own door. To say that injustice anywhere is an offense everywhere is not rhetoric, it is reality. We cannot insulate ourselves from it. We cannot build walls high enough or hide in comfort deep enough to escape its reach. We either confront it when it first appears, or we invite it to spread, to fester, and to claim far more than it ever should have been allowed. And so the fight against injustice, no matter where it begins, must be the fight of us all. Fear is a powerful force. It whispers that speaking out will bring trouble, that standing up will bring consequences, that it is safer to remain still, to remain silent, to remain unseen. And for a moment, fear convinces us. It tells us that survival is more important than truth, that comfort is more valuable than justice, but fear does not protect. It imprisons. It builds walls inside the human spirit, walls that separate us from courage, from conviction, from the very essence of what makes us free. Indifference is even more dangerous. Fear at least admits that something's wrong. Indifference denies it entirely. It looks suffering in the face and shrugs. It watches cruelty unfold and chooses convenience over conscience. Indifference is the quiet killer of societies. It does not shout. It does not rage. It simply allows evil to spread unchecked. Where fear binds the brave, indifference buries the innocent. It as fear and indifference is measured in lives diminished, voices silenced, and truths buried. Entire generations have lived under the weight of injustice because too many chose to stand aside, believing their inaction made them innocent. But inaction is not innocence. It is participation cloaked in passivity. The oppressor thrives not only on his own strength, but on the weakness of those who refuse to resist him. History is filled with lessons written in pain. The greatest tragedies were not born solely from the cruelty of a few, but from the silence of the many. Fear made people look away. Indifference made them believe it was not their concern. And by the time they realized the cost, the damage was already done. We must understand this. To allow fear and indifference to rule us is to hand injustice the very tools it needs to endure. But when we refuse to bow to fear, when we tear down indifference with empathy and action, we strip injustice of its power. The cost of fear is high, but the cost of courage is higher, only if we mistake survival for living. True life, true dignity, is found in standing against what is wrong, no matter the risk, no matter the cost. Truth is a force that cannot be silenced, no matter how many walls are built to contain it, no matter how many lies are spoken to bury it. It may be pushed down for time, covered in shadows, drowned out by noise, but truth has a way of enduring. It waits, patient and relentless, until the moment comes when it can no longer be denied. And when that moment arrives, it does not slip quietly into the world. It breaks through like thunder, demanding to be heard. Those who fear truth always try to smother it. They twist it, distort it, and dress it in falsehoods, believing that if they shout loud enough, the truth will disappear. But lies are fragile. They require constant maintenance, endless repetition, and tireless repetition. Truth requires none of that. It simply is. It waits in the silence, steady and unchanging, while deception exhausts itself. In the end, truth does not fade. It reveals. There is great power in speaking truth, but there is also great danger. Truth unsettles those who cling to control. It threatens the comfortable, exposes the corrupt, and shakes the foundations of systems built on injustice. That is why speaking truth has always carried a price. Those who dare to give it voice often face resistance, ridicule, even persecution. Yet history remembers them because truth has a way of outliving both the cowardice of silence and the violence of denial. Truth has the power to heal what injustice has broken. It brings light to the hidden, dignity to the silenced, and hope to those who thought the world had forgotten them. When truth is spoken, it restores balance, reminding us that no matter how dark the night, the dawn cannot be held back forever. To embrace truth is to embrace responsibility, for once you know it, you cannot unknow it. Once you see it, you cannot claim blindness. Truth demands action. It asks us to stand, to fight, to live with the weight of honesty, even when it is uncomfortable. Because only through truth can there be justice, and only through justice can there be peace. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act in spite of it. Every human being feels fear. Fear of consequence, fear of loss, fear of standing alone. But courage is the quiet voice that rises above that fear and says, act anyway. Do not let the weight of what may come stop you from doing what must be done. True courage is rarely loud. It is often steady, often silent. A single step taken forward when every instinct screams to remain still. Responsibility is the companion of courage. It is the recognition that justice is not the task of a chosen few, but the burden of us all. Too often we wait for leaders, for heroes, for someone stronger or louder to carry the fight. But responsibility does not belong to them. It belongs to you. It belongs to me. It belongs to every person with the ability to see what is wrong and the capacity to resist it. To know the truth and do nothing is to betray it. To see injustice and remain still is to lend it strength. Responsibility means we do not get to stand aside and claim innocence. It means our silence, our inaction, our hesitation, all of it has weight. Courage and responsibility are inseparable. One without the other is incomplete. Responsibility without courage is knowledge without action, a burden carried but never used. Courage without responsibility is reckless, a spark without purpose. But when they meet, when the human spirit embraces both, there is no force strong enough to keep injustice standing. It is courage that drives the hand to act and responsibility that guides it toward what is right. Every generation is given the same choice, to shrink back into comfort or to rise into courage. History remembers those who chose the latter. Their steps were not easy, their paths not safe, but they bore the weight of responsibility with dignity. And because of them, the world shifted. That same choice lies before us now. Responsibility is ours, courage is required, and justice will not wait forever. There comes a point when words must no longer remain only words. Reflection, acknowledgement, even truth itself mean little if they do not lead us to act. Injustice cannot be reasoned with, cannot be persuaded into surrender. It must be confronted. It must be resisted. And that requires more than sympathy, requires movement. A call to action is not simply an invitation, it is a demand, written into the very core of our humanity. We cannot wait for perfect conditions. We cannot wait until the risks are gone, until the path is safe, until we feel completely ready. That day will never come. Injustice thrives on hesitation. It waits for our delays. It feeds on our excuses. And with every moment we falter, it grows stronger. The only time to act is now, not tomorrow, not someday, now. Action takes many forms. For some, it is raising a voice where silence once reigned. For others, it is reaching out a hand to those who have been pushed down. For many, it is choosing to live with integrity in the small, unseen moments when no one is watching. And for all, it is the refusal to accept injustice as normal, the refusal to become numb to the suffering of others. No act of courage is too small. Each one adds weight to the side of justice, and together they shift the balance. But make no mistake, this call is not easy. It demands sacrifice. It may cost comfort, reputation, even safety. Yet, what is the value of a life lived in comfort if it is built on the silence that allowed others to suffer? What worth is safety if it is bought with the price of another's pain? Action is costly, yes, but inaction is catastrophic. So let this be the moment. Let this be the turning point where fear yields to courage, where silence yields to truth, where indifference yields to responsibility. The call has been sounded. Injustice has stood unchallenged for too long. It will not fall on its own. It will fall only when good people rise together, relentless, unbroken, and unwilling to stop, until justice is not just a dream, but a reality. The time for silence has ended. The time for waiting has passed. We have faced the weight of fear, the poison of indifference, the lies that try to bury truth, and we have seen them for what they are. Chains meant to bind us. But chains can be broken. Injustice may rise. It may shout, it may strike, but it cannot endure against a people who choose courage over fear, responsibility over neglect, and action over silence. This is not the burden of one voice, nor the duty of a few. It is the calling of us all. Every heart that beats for what is right, every hand that refuses to let go of justice, every soul that will not bow to cruelty. Together, they form a force that cannot be moved. So let us stand, not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Let us speak with the strength of truth, act with the fire of courage, and carry the weight of responsibility with pride. For if we rise together, if we refuse to yield, then injustice will have no shelter, no refuge, no place left to hide. The silence has been broken, the call has been made, and the choice is clear. We do not wait. We do not turn away. We rise.